Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm gonna deck profile my wanted Mikanko Goblin Biker deck I took to our Rarity collection celebration. I went 5-1 and got 4th place with the deck. It performed really well, but I will say this deck will struggle against decks that floodgate you or like calamity lock you, and thankfully I didn't really play against any of that, so we had a good time. Round 1, I played against the Dolce, I won. Round 2, Labyrinth, I won. Round 3, Snake Eyes and Fortnite, I lost. I did not play around Super Poly, so I had my first turn end board was like Gabanga, Arclight, SP Little Knight, and I think the Full Armor Exceed Lancer. Yeah, I got Super Poly and they went full combo because the Arclight was gone. And then I lost game 2 because I went for the Acid Golem lock and the open droplets and Super Poly, so my board got cracked again, which is really unlucky. Then round 4 I played against Pirelli, I won. Bad matchup for them. Round 5 Tempai, I won. And round 6 Tempai, I won. So overall the deck performed really well and I really enjoyed playing it. I hope anyone that's watching this that tries out this deck build kind of like tweaks it and makes it better, because I'm sure there's more room for improvement. So jumping into our main deck here, our for Mikanko package, the triple Ohime. Very self-explanatory. She's level 6 which is really cool, since you can make Power Tool Braver with some of the other stuff in the deck, and she searches you any of your Mikanko cards, which is great. Then I played double Hare, 1 Huli for our main deck level 3 Mikankos, which help with the Goblin Biker stuff, which is really nice since we have Recursion with Fire Dance and my Washidoris. And fun fact that this being a psychic is actually relevant in this deck. Then triple Arabesque, Board Breaker, and gets you to your Mikanko engine going first. Then the 1 Fire Dance and my Washidori, as I mentioned, to recur our Mikankos, and then play 1 Ceremony to summon the Ohime and dump our Mikanko cards that we would need in situations we find ourselves in. 1 Spirit Walk. I think this is my favorite interaction trap for like more mixed archetype decks like this, because it's only 1 card needed. You don't have to play extra equip spells for the other trap, or you have to play like Nini for the other trap. Sometimes that 500 burn can come up. Then I played 2 preps to search Ohime. I think this is like a flex spot. It's kind of cool because then you can thrust it, but it's probably not necessary, and thankfully Droll is not really prevalent in the format, so this deck can really shine. And I'm sure these slots could be used for something else if someone has a better idea. Then Goblin Biker engine, we play 1 Dog, 1 Grand Entrance, 1 Clatter Exploder, 1 Mean Merciless, and 1 Boom Mock. I find myself signing out usually 1 name if I go second in most games. Then the really cool thing about this deck is if you get interrupted on certain plays, like with your Power Tool Braver lines or your like wanted lines, if you have a decent enough hand, you can pivot into the Goblin Biker engine and start doing Exceed plays instead. Then, since we're playing Goblin Bikers, we have rank 3 engine of the Terratop Takiton board combo. Really nice to just start off your turns. If you have a good enough hand, you can insulate your plays with the Bamboozling Gossip Shadow. If not, you can just use them as material to either make your Gabanga or just bodies to sacrifice for your wanted engine, like the Diabellstar summon or the original Sinful Spoils. And then adding on, we're playing triple emergency teleports. This accesses the other psychics in our deck and Huli, because the cool thing is if you don't need your tuners or anything and you can just summon out your Huli, then you can get more ways to get to like your Mikanko trap to extend your plays or to interrupt your opponent on your next turn. And it just allows for you to like get the extra name for recursion with the 2 equip spells, the Fire Dance and my Washidori. Then triple Psychic Wielder, or double Psychic Wielder and Tracker as our other extenders for level 3s. As I mentioned, Emergency Teleport plus this card coming out with the Ohime can instantly turn into Power Tool Braver Dragon, which I've done a few times, and just being a level 3 extender to play further into interruptions is nice, because I play the Gen Ken engine. This is how we Acid Golem lock if this resolves. If it doesn't, we just try to pivot into Goblin Biker lines or the Power Tool Braver if we have the wanted engine. because we also have extenders, so we can just kind of smoke screen like normal summon one of them, gets like imperm, then you just go special extender and go off from there. And then since we're playing the Kangen engine, we can afford to do things like main deck triple tactic talents at 3, and I also play 2 thrust since it combos with Kangen, and if you go second, it's really nice. I would probably consider playing 3, but I only own 2 and I don't want to afford a third one. And then we're playing triple wanteds and 1 Diabellstar along with original Sinful Spoils and a Jet Synchron for the entire package that we're using Diabellstar for, because we just do the Axo Synchron, play with any body plus Diabellstar and the original Sinful, the extra body to make level 8 synchro, and then you can just reborn it. It's cool. And then, you know, the wanted engine being able to dig 1 extra card deeper when you deck thin your deck is also nice. And then with the Power Tool Braver, we're equipping Durandal as one of the targets, so this is their 2 targets for this. But you can also search the Hare if you need to with Durandal, which is cool. I cut the Renault because it just felt unnecessary, and the Oliver coming and summoning itself out seemed more relevant in most situations, especially being a guaranteed tuner. Then, since we're playing the Exceed Armor package, I have the 1 Full Armor Exceed, and then the last card I have in the main deck to round off 50 cards is a Change of Heart for the Kangen and or going second with Thrust. Going into our extra deck here, I'm playing 1 Arclight. It's very common. I try to summon this before 5 summons if I don't have to dump monsters to the graveyard. It's also nice since it doesn't affect monsters from field going to graveyard, and it has 1 matchups like in Labyrinth. I made this before they realized what was going on, so they couldn't furniture me on my turn, and just protecting the Arclight during their turn kind of made their turns also awkward. And then, as I mentioned, we're playing the 1 Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon to go with the Diabellstar plus Jet Synchron play. 1 Power Tool Braver Dragon, the card that lets you equip 3 equip spells from deck or grave. Really cool. And then 1 big Gabanga for the Goblin Biker Exceed to get into our plays. I usually don't make this first because I'd like to have this card resolve, so I'll try to bait the Mikanko cards or the wanted cards before I use Gabanga. Then we have the Exceed Armor Torpedo, Exceed's Armor Fortress, and Dark Knight Lancer for the Exceed's Armor package. The cool thing about like Big Gabanga resolving guarantees you the extra 3s to just make these and this, so you always have a play if you can get to Gabanga. If you get interrupted enough, your end board's not that bad, and you get to dig deeper in your deck. Then, as I mentioned, we have 1 Gossip Shadow for those plays where we need to insulate ourselves from hand traps that are monster effects, and just being another rank 3, you can do like summon it on your opponent's turn with the Xyz Armor Trap. And then, as I mentioned, we're playing the Kangen Acid Golem Lock. I only resolved it twice that day, a mix between just not seeing Kangen or getting interrupted on the Kangen. But when it did resolve, it was pretty nice, except for, of course, where I mentioned where I got dropleted. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. He just drew better in a 60-card deck. Then I play the Geonator for the Acid Golem to give it to my opponent. The Goblin Bikers can make it either a 1 material or 0 material, depending on how you had to sequence your lines and how early you had to use the Goblin Bikers. Then you can also just like Clatter Exploder the 2nd material on their main phase on the next turn, or like Boom Lock it, so you can make sure they can attack with a Golem to clear your board. Then 1 Little Knight Generic Link 2, nice card. 1 Hita, since we play a good amount of fires and we can take a good amount of fires from opponent's graveyards. It's come up a few times. And then the 1 Celine to go with the Hita to link climb into access code if we need to, which is what helps us close out games or weaken game states. Like against Tempai, I went second. I managed to break their entire board and leave them on the top deck after I like SP'd them, banished a card, and then made access code after to pop another card. So they genuinely just had to top deck any card. But I also had another interruption, I believe, on that board on top of the access code. And then 1 Appaloosa. It comes up against certain matchups to make, and I did not actually make it that day, but I definitely could have. Like, if I played around the Super Poly, as I mentioned, against the Infernoid matchup, because I chose to end on, like, a SP and, like, the Gabanga, another Exceed, I could have just turned that into Appaloosa and I would not have been able to get Super Polyed. So that was, like, an option there where I did consider, but I didn't think it was relevant until I saw the Super Poly come down, and I'm like, I guess I misplayed. But, yeah, that is the extra deck. Now going into our side deck, I did play the Kagura and Rondo in the side deck for going second. I felt like I really only wanted Kagura going into like back row decks so I could have non-targeting back row destruction, and going into game 3 to help win in time also is kind of relevant. Then Rondo just being a nice interaction point of being like a pseudo change of heart or something along those lines. Then a Ghost Ogre, since I play E-Telly, if I'm playing against something like Tenpai and I think they're going to make me go first, I definitely would put it in. And just, of course, I'd set it in if I go second regardless, just because it's good in those matchups. If I happen to draw it, I draw it. If not, I have E-Telly access. Then 3 Nibiru's as the only other hand trap I really play because it's pretty high impact. And with Mikonkos, if you can just drop a huge Nib token on their board and then just summon a Mikanko or two, you might just win the game like that without much effort. And then triple Lava Golem for those decks that put out obnoxious boards with a lot of things to play through. You can just Lava Golem them. Your normal summon's not that important in this deck. Like, if you don't open Kengen, you might not just ever normal summon on your turn, which is actually really cool. So that is definitely something to keep note of. And usually, yeah, if you're siding in Lava Golem, you're probably setting out Kengen. Then triple Cosmics, because the Cosmic is a good card against a lot of decks. It's very relevant. I did have this card against Tenpai. They flipped Anti-Spell when they went first, and I had the Cosmic for it. I would not have been able to play the game, at least, or that turn, rather, because of it. And I did actually open this T-Roar, which I played, which would have kept me in the game anyway, but it was nice not having to rely on that. So T-Roar is thrust target for the talents, either thrust, sorry, and it's pretty relevant because it's the Tenpai matchup. They play a lot of hand traps, so if they hand trap you, you're probably just going to set a T-Roar, and that did happen to me in one of the Tenpai games, where I could only end on like Huli, T-Roar pass, and it was enough to get me to my next turn, and I was able to just OTK them. Then 1 D-Barrier, another thrust target, and 1 Duster for back row decks. Yeah, that is the entire deck profile. I'll leave a couple random test hand Yugioh Pro hands in the video right after this, but that is the entire deck profile. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.